Oh, no, wait. I'll turn it over to Director Withers for this.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Sidney, I'll provide a brief overview, but and if there are any questions, I'll certainly be happy to answer them. So Council may be aware that in 2023, the RENFREW secondary plan, formerly the Industrial Land Secondary Plan, was identified as a project. The intent of the project was to plan for the future development of about 250 acres of land to the southeast of the Algonquin Trail and east and west of the Whitten Road, north of the trail, including approximately 215 acres of town-owned land. The study area includes lands that are mainly vacant with some existing development. The lands are currently mostly designated industrial as identified on Appendix A to the report showing the existing land use. It's anticipated currently that the designation of the land as industrial, almost entirely industrial, represents an oversupply of industrial lands in the town. And that a mix of land uses would be more appropriate in this area to serve the needs of RENFREW residents. Currently, the lands are characterized in physical terms by mainly vacant farm fields, limited residential development, forested areas, and drainage features. The study area is well situated in a location where services either exist or they are planned or available for extension into the secondary plan area. Things like water, wastewater, stormwater management, and transportation infrastructure. The RENFREW, in terms of the project itself, it's moved concurrently with the Whitten Road closure and realignment project due to just interdependencies between the two projects and the consultants working on the projects. So we've been able to take advantage of kind of the design and consultation efforts between the two projects, which has been helpful. The project team for the Whitten Road project, in addition to town staff, includes transportation and civil engineering consultants. They've reviewed the project area and they've proposed alternatives on a preliminary basis, including informing planned road alignments, land uses, density gradients, and potential locations for extensions of trunk sewer and water mains into the study area. There were 4 land use and transportation alternatives that were based on standardized evaluation criteria for environmental assessment studies, and these were brought forward by Bytown Engineering, BTE. We're the consultants on the Whitten Road project, and they've used these criteria in a number of environmental assessments that have had to go to litigation or tribunals. And the methodology for ranking the land use alternatives has been defended successfully and accepted by adjudicators as a quantitative approach to evaluating different land use alternatives. So in layman's terms, this is a very defensible approach to evaluating land use alternatives. Appendix C has Appendix B rather, has the 4 land use alternatives from 2A to 2D. And you might be asking, well, why are they 2A to 2D? Why is there a number 2 there? And the answer is just essentially that there were 2 Whitten Road alternatives for the closure of Whitten Road, and number 2 represents the preferred alternative just for that closure and realignment. So everything, all the land use alternatives that fell under that Whitten Road closure alignment were called number 2 and then a particular letter, so 2A to 2D. Appendix C includes the evaluation report prepared by BTE, and it details the approach that was taken to evaluate the 4 alternatives. It was based on predetermined categories and rating scales. Essentially what ended up happening is the team undertook a rating. They assigned individual scores to each alternative for each category, and the combined scores were analyzed to identify the alternative that scored the highest across the categories. Based on the results of the analysis, alternative 2D, which is included in Appendix D, was identified as the technically preferred land use alternative. And at this time, staff are recommending that this alternative be advanced for the purposes of the RENFREW secondary plan onto a draft preparation of the plan text and moving forward to public consultation. Also note that the RENFREW secondary plan, and the reason we're looking at this as is because it's part of a broader strategy for the disposition of town land holdings in this area. As noted, there's an excess of 200 acres of town land. And so this exercise is really an exercise in identifying what the potential future development of this area could look like in 10, 20, 30 years down the road. Obviously, there's going to be a phasing element to this, so it's not all going to happen at once. You're probably going to see areas that are closer to existing services and transportation entrances be developed earlier. And then, of course, areas, parts of the study area that are kind of further removed will take longer to develop. But certainly, this is a long-term plan for the area, and this will become an amendment. A secondary plan is an amendment to our official plan, and all developments required to conform to it. So this will guide development of this area over the long term. So I'm going to leave it at that, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor, through you and to the Director. I went through this today and I spoke to you earlier with regard to the full approach. I really like the fact that you talked about it's a defensible approach to this process. With regard to public participation and input, what are the next steps for that? Because right now we're simply at the preparatory stage of getting everything in line, right? So what are the next steps with regard to public participation?
Yes, thank you. So on November the 20th, there is a public consultation center that is being held. It'll be in the upper what do we technically call it? The event area in the Mattaway Activity Center, or the MyFM Center rather. And so we'll be having a public consultation center there, and we'll be reviewing both the preferred alternatives for the RENFREW East development area as well as the Whitten Road realignment. Following that, we'll proceed to actually draft the secondary plan text. We will formalize the schedules in a way that's kind of consistent with our official plan, and then we'll come back to council for further endorsement and then roll it out to a statutory public meeting. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald, follow-up.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you again, a follow-up. This is a good major move forward for this town, and I understand there's a short-term and a long-term approach to it. But can you deal, for those that are interested, in costs at this time in terms of how that's applicable?
Yes, thank you. And so the budget for the study work was contemplated in the 2023 and 2024 budgets, so that's taken care of as part of our capital budget. As far as the actual development of the area, again, it's to be determined exactly who is going to develop. I mean, in all likelihood, this is going to be developed by a developer, right? The town is not going to undertake this plan. This is the town will likely enter into some sort of an agreement or sell the lands to a future developer, and then the development of this area would take place in accordance with this plan. But the actual costs associated with it would be just like any development. So the town right now owns the lion's share of these lands, but I think subject to council direction, the plan is that the town will not own these in the future, that these will be developed and as per usual. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Councillor Anderdick.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Director Withers, just give me a timeline. Like, we're doing the study now, but like, what's the timeline for this to be complete? Like the Whitten Road closure. Like, are we talking 5 years down the road? Are we talking 10 years down the road? Or are we talking next summer? Just want to kind of get a gauge a timeline on this one. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And through you, Mayor Sidney, so the Witten Road closure in particular, and so just kind of compartmentalizing these as two separate projects. So the Witten Road closure is one component, and then you have the RENFREW secondary plan, which is largely a planning project. The Witten Road closure project, there are some early discussions about funding arrangement with the MTO because they're funding the vast majority of the study work for the Witten Road closure, and they've agreed to fund the majority of the realignment work for the Witten Road closure. So it really depends on how quickly we can come to an arrangement with MTO, and then the ability of the town to finance any other capital improvements that council wants to proceed with along with that realignment work. So the Witten Road, to answer your question, the Witten Road realignment work could be in the order of a couple of years to construction. The design work is being undertaken right now. So if we can get an agreement in place with MTO, it could be in the order of a couple of years, 2 to 3 years. And then, of course, developing this area further will take more time. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? All in favor? Carried. Thank you, council.